So much of my research focuses on the use of international sporting events as moments of protest and resistance, often to the games themselves, often to larger issues. So some recent research I've done has involved a historical look at an Olympic bid put forward by community members in Banff in the mid-1960s to host the 1972 Winter Olympics, a bid that was largely unsuccessful because of protests from members of environmental and wildlife preservation groups. More recently, I was in Vancouver for the 2010 Winter Olympic Games, studying some of the protest narratives that had emerged in the 7 years prior to the Games. The Olympics have been a site of protest often, perhaps more often than people realize, whether it was homelessness protesters in Atlanta in 1996 or protest groups in Toronto, a protest group called Bread Not Circuses that was a very vocal voice in helping not defeat but call into question Toronto's 1996 and 2008 Olympic bids. Increasingly though, the Olympics, well, surrounded often by issues of protest, not always about the Olympics, but often about what money is being spent on the Olympics rather than on other issues, or as in the case of Vancouver, environmental destruction for Olympic related projects, or money not being spent on homelessness in the downtown east side when that money could perhaps be spent elsewhere. There's lots of narratives of protests surrounding the Olympic Games, but increasingly the Olympics themselves are becoming a very difficult place to protest. The IOC polices the space, the physical space of the Olympics, as well as the public space of discourse through the media around the Olympic Games. People who want to host the Olympic Games, cities that think about bidding, the civic leaders, as well as the members of the international Olympic community, point to a number of different kinds of legacy issues that they claim that the Olympics will have. One is the physical legacy of sport structures. Those often come attached increasingly to the creation of infrastructure projects that might not otherwise happen, and that's problematic in and of itself. But in 2004, when Athens hosted the Olympic Games, the citizens of Greece ended up with a train line direct to the airport that might not have been built otherwise. Toronto is hosting the Pan Am Games in 2015, and there's a subway line being extended to York University, which has been a long talked about project in Toronto. So there are those infrastructural benefits. There are sport facilities. Certainly Toronto's 2015 Pan Am bid is predicated upon the long-standing neglect of sport facilities in the country's largest city. So there are those kind of benefits. There's the ancillary infrastructure benefits. There's tourism, claims of tourism benefits. Those are difficult entirely to substantiate, and there are claims of economic benefits, that this will be a construction boon for a city, that there will be long-standing injection of cash into local economies. And the economics of that is fuzzy at best, that there are as many studies debunking that claim as there are demonstrating that claim, and very, very, very little follow-up research. A lot of the claims made of economic benefit happen as part of the bidding process in advance of games. There's very little research done afterwards.